Tell me if you've heard this one before. A guy walks into a lawyer's office and asks, "Can you tell me how much you charge?" And the lawyer says, "Of course I can. I charge $200 to answer 3 questions." "Well, that's a bit steep, isn't it?" "Yes, it is." "And what's your third question?" I'm sure you've heard this one before. Why won't sharks attack lawyers? Professional courtesy. Or even better, how many lawyer jokes are there out there? 3, and the rest are all true. Will Rogers famously said, "The minute you read something that you can't understand, you can almost be sure that it was drawn up by a lawyer." Clearly, there are some questionable feelings out there regarding lawyers and the law. There's a famous quote from Shakespeare's Henry VI: "The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers." Now, this quote is usually taken out of context to slight the legal profession in the most sophisticated way possible, by quoting the bard. But in reality, the line is offered in support of one of the play's baddies, who thought that if he disturbed law and order, he could become king. Shakespeare actually meant it as a compliment to attorneys and judges who instilled justice in society, which is how I hope you'll start to think of the law, and possibly even lawyers, by the end of this class. Welcome to Historic Preservation Law. Hi, I'm Emily Bergeron, and I'm going to be your instructor this semester in Historic Preservation Law. Since you're here, you either want to have some understanding of the law, or you're required to be here for your degree. Either way, I'm glad you're here, because it's important to have some understanding of the law if you want to practice historic preservation or in some historic preservation related field. You probably already understand a lot more about the law than you realize, because almost everything we do, from crossing the street to borrowing your friend's Netflix password, and everything we touch, from the food you eat to the house you live in, is governed by some form of law. And with historic preservation, everything from archaeology to zoning is impacted by some kind of law. Unfortunately, law is often complex and admittedly boring. This has a tendency to force people into avoiding studying law and preventing them from knowing and understanding the laws that affect their profession. Also, when studying law, you're faced with a complex and usually antiquated language and a body of knowledge that's constantly changing from administration to administration or from court decision to court decision. The law is, let's face it, perpetually confusing. Jokes about the law and lawyers and studying law are pervasive in law school. For example, a helpful tip from one law student to another: laminate your notes so your tears roll off. Or my favorite, at the end of 3 years of school, law professor saying, 3 years ago, when asked a legal question, you could answer in all honesty, "I don't know." Now you can say with great authority, "It depends." The goal of this class is not to make a lawyer out of you. This is not a law school class, and there should be no crying on laminated notes. In fact, this class is designed to be as painless as possible. You are here to gain a basic understanding of the laws that affect historic preservation, when and how they're applied, and what they protect, so that if and when you have to deal with a law or a lawyer, you'll have a foundation in this material that lets you communicate with stakeholders. Now that takes me to the objectives of this class. First, you're going to learn some important vocabulary that's associated with preservation-related laws. Despite the fact that the Lawyer's Code of Professional Responsibility has made it a goal for lawyers to speak and write in a way that their clients understand, lawyers have their own expensive language. The laws that you'll encounter will use terminology such as major federal action, undertakings, consultation, objects of cultural patrimony, salvage and fines, and takings. Vocabulary that you need to understand to know when and how laws are applied. Overcoming the language barrier in law is the first goal of this class. To learn, or at least be exposed to, this legal language. That way, when you come across terms like undertaking, or regulatory taking, or significant impact, You'll have heard the term before and will have some context to put it in. The second goal is to know where to find and how to implement the information that you might need. Research and writing are important to any profession, but with the law, it's impossible to remember all of the statutes, regulations, codes, case law, guidelines, bulletins, and all of the other things that dictate how it is that preservation law operates. What you need to know is how to find the appropriate information when you need it. By familiarizing yourselves with all of these different types of information, learning where to look back as a reference, and learning to communicate using this information, your lives will hopefully be a little easier if and when you come across these things in the future. And the final objective of this class, and what I want you to keep in mind while you're working your way through this course, is to stay calm. This class, this information, assignments, and exams are not about trying to trick you. This isn't law school.
Mr. Hart, here's a dime. Call your mother. Tell her there's serious doubt about your becoming a lawyer.
The goal is not to make lawyers out of anyone. There are far too many of us out there to begin with. My hope is that the information you learn in this class will help you deal with issues that may come up in your professional life. And in the event that you have to deal with lawyers in the future, which you probably will, you'll know what the heck it is they're talking about. You should also leave this class with a basic foundation that you can build on with practice. You may end up in a job where you never have to deal with the law, but in a field like preservation that has so much to do with advocacy, that's highly unlikely. And in a field that can encompass so many different types of resources, landscapes, buildings, archaeological resources, and more, you may come across lots of different types of laws. What I think would be helpful to you is to know the basics of the law. So if, for example, there was a site that you're dealing with where some kind of archaeological resources were uncovered, you would know to look at ARPA. Or if there was a road construction project going through the region you're working in, you would have some sense of what Section 4F of the Transportation Act says. Maybe you want to save a historic structure, and there's an owner you're trying to convince to save the property. You should know something about easements. You'll benefit from knowing something about how Section 106 works, how the environmental impact assessment process works, or what preservation easements look like. And knowledge of these processes can be really helpful in finding jobs. So that sums up my goals for this course. Please make sure that before you get into the course materials that you take some time to read the syllabus so that you know what it is that you're responsible for and how it is you're going to be graded. If you have any questions about how the class works, ask as soon as possible so you don't run into trouble at the end of the semester. Actually, let me take this opportunity to say that whenever you have a question about the class, whether it's material discussed, a class reading, or some kind of problem with accessing online materials, please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here to help you, and I'm happy to help you in any way I can. Till next time, thanks for listening.